Hello, hello, hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, today is August 28th. Let me lower my seat. What better day to start a podcast than... You know what? Hold on. Pause. I've been going through a lot. Okay. I know I said that I was starting this podcast in like June, May, June. This is Dakota. Say hello. I know I said that I was starting this podcast in like May, June-ish, but when I say life has been rolling like literally nonstop, like there was just one thing after another, like career change, relationship change, like I'm just, trusting God right now that everything is going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. But yeah, so I kind of put off the podcast for a long time because I kept trying to perfect it. I realized like doing something I've never done before, I made like minor mistakes, but it wasn't like detrimental. And I realized like the more time and effort I put into it, right, the better I was getting at my skills. And I realized that like if you try to start something new and be perfect starting out, then you're never going to try because you're going to try so hard for it to be perfect without failing, and you need to fail in order to learn, in order to grow. I don't know what to do. I don't want to put Dakota down. I was also like struggling with like a topic, like what is the structure going to be? I just kept I really wanted the podcast to be perfect. I've watched and listened to other podcasts. I wasn't trying to form my podcast necessarily around another podcast, but I saw things that I liked from other podcasts that I was trying to incorporate them and to make my own without having my own, if that makes sense. I was just like, I should have started my podcast right when I was interested in starting a podcast, period. Because who knows where it would have been now. The story would have been amazing. But here we are, no regrets, no excuses, acceptance, love, and growth, really. But this podcast, I don't want a title for it. I don't want to be like, oh, it's a educational, or it's a podcast where we speak, But I actually posted something and it was like, oh, ask me a question and I'll answer it on my first podcast type thing. And I screenshotted them and I saved them to this phone. I actually saved them to my other phone, but I gave that phone away to somebody. And now I only have this phone. So Dakota just cried. I think he's asleep. I'm trying not to wake him up because he was biting my hair and like pulling it, and I kept telling him to stop and he would not stop. Okay. And the question I have is, why do you want to start a podcast? So I think at the time I was working at Champ still. And let me just say, that was not a healthy environment to be in. That store, it was just horrendous. Like, although it's like retail, and it's retail. It's retail. Like, it's retail. It's not that deep. As deep as they make it, it truthfully is not that deep. So I just felt I wanted to do something purposeful, and I wanted to do something that, that made me feel satisfied. Just to have that, like that emotional satisfaction, like, oh, I can provide something to someone's life that isn't, hey, you need a size 12 and these retro vibes. Like, no. So in the midst of me like deciding I wanted to leave retail, I'm not gonna lie, I was really scared, and it was just all I knew. So leaving retail, it was kind of, it was a big change. So I knew like I am going to be leaving something that I am very familiar with, that I am very comfortable within. But knowing that I was leaving, knowing that I was going to do something that I didn't have any experience in, that was completely new to me, I was like, you know what, I need a hobby. I was like, what is something that I would actually enjoy? And that's when a podcast popped into my head. So cute. But yeah, so the whole podcast thing popped into my head, and like just for a new hobby. And I believe it or not, I've actually found the love of my life. And at the time I was conversing with them, about like my ideas. I'm like, does this look good? Does this not look good? And they would give me advice. But yeah, it was really funny to try. You know, like when you're starting something, it's not perfect. My setup right now is so imperfect. I just threw my freaking tripod, I threw my camera, my phone on my tripod. I'm recording on my phone, my MacBook. I have my mic, I have a ring light. I just threw it all up. I was not as worried as the first time where I literally was like trying to get the thing level on the tripod. Like this time I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. It's gonna do what it's gonna do. God's plan is God's plan. So here we are with this episode. Anyways, yeah. I don't wanna like try to aim for like, oh, I have a 45-minute long podcast episode video. No. I really want this podcast to be something that people can learn from, whether that is educational, whether that is emotional, you know, like emotional intelligence. I don't want my podcast to be like, oh, it's an educational podcast, or oh, it's whatever. I just want it to be, period. As I've said before, I just want to be. I want this to be a platform where people learn, you know. I am a very, 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 very young 20 years old. And although people may be like, oh my gosh, you're 20 years old, like, what do you know? What could you educate people with? I have lived a life so far. I've been through a lot. Even just today, been through a ton. Yesterday, last night, been through a ton. That I know once I heal from and am able to share, that people will definitely be able to learn from. And that's all I want. I'm gonna cry, hold on. We live in a tough society, a tough generation. And yeah. And it doesn't always have to be like super sad or something. Like it obviously there's gonna be days where we might talk about something extravagant, but this is just the beginning, just an introduction. So with all being said, welcome to my podcast. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you. I do not want to be that person that's like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment, but do it. Just do it. Nike. Stay tuned for more. Trust me, my life is so exciting. Right, Dakota? So much to share. And I cannot wait for the constructive criticism and the questions and everything that's coming with it. So, yeah. Say bye, Coda.